We're going to talk today about Luna and UST, what happened, why it happened, and the reasons why I think this has happened. Now, I know I have been in the UST ecosystem. I've used Anchor Protocol. I used risk management. You need to use risk management in everything in this space. Anything with finance, anything with money put down, there's risk involved, right? No matter what stable currency you're in, no matter what crypto asset you're in, no matter what you are doing in real life, if you are buying watches, cars, property, make that clear, right? So the 1st of May, we're going to go back to this year, obviously. Rank number 10, UST. Rank number 8, Luna. I want you to look at the Luna supply on there, and then I'm going to show you what it is right now today. Now, let's be honest. Things started to change very quickly when I believe, for me anyways, this is a tweet here that has been regurgitated essentially. Now, I'm not going all the way deep into Twitter. I could be here all day and I can go mad on it. But in November, that tweet was put out, right? Freddie Reynolds, or whatever he's called him, did a tweet. And the tweet was very clear how to do an attack on the ecosystem of Luna. And it was all detailed out. And obviously, you can see the reply. It's pretty clear. Now, this is what I think the main point of failure to this project and other projects in crypto, not just this, why I think the demise of Tron has been very, very clear, and other cryptocurrencies that have also failed. It's due to the leader, the founder. Decentralization, we got leaders, I know. But the ego got too big, and you can see by these replies. Going on to the next bit of this, betting against, don't bet against Luna. Egging people on, egging a lot of money, let's be honest here on Twitter, even on Reddit, there's a lot of money. There's a lot of money floating around in crypto, especially early adopters. They are wealthy. And let's be fair, what else have they got to do? Oh, let's just destroy things, let's test things. And egging money on, being a bit of a dickhead about it, is always going to be a recipe for disaster. And then, but that's in the 19th of December, right? Moving on to just overall characteristics. If you just put in all the tweets regarding poor, he used to call, and he still, well, did, call everyone poor. Look at it. It is actually pretty horrific how that was just a very, very common insult. It's pretty, for a founder, for a leader of, at the time, a very, very big, renowned cryptocurrency that kind of stood the test of time. It grew. It gained some traction and success at the time. Behaving like that, not good. And I know I'm outspoken. I will call people out, but I wouldn't call people poor. You know, there's a fine line between derogatory behavior and ultimately just being, you know, outspoken, right? Moving on to what then became a spectacle on Twitter. I remember this pretty well. I was watching it and I was like, oh, hello. I remember, I think it was Kobe that set up the escrow for this. And it actually escalates quite a lot. If Luna breaks its all-time high, I will short it. And you can just see the insult here. Yeah, but your size, not size. Basically egging him on, saying, you're not big enough, mate. But the stakes did get risen a little bit. Because when we start looking at it, it was $1 million. It's going to be 10 million, I think, or something like that. It started off at 1 million, then it went to 10 million. I'll raise the stakes sort of thing. And then what actually did happen, someone else jumped in with 20, going, all right, big man, this one here, GCR. And this is actually the tweet of the profit that he actually done. He shorted it with the additional. So actually what happened was Duquan said, no, 10 million only, basically bottled the extra 10 million because he doubled the stakes. And he went, you know what I'll do? With that money, I'll just short it anyways with that extra 10 million at size. And obviously what happened is crazy. But this, by the way, this is from the 7th of May. So if that short was left, and let's just imagine this for a second, if that short was left for a little bit longer, for a couple of days, ooh, and I believe the money has been donated to charity or he's going to put so much to charity within it as well. But that is the thing. We need to talk about money. We need to talk about the side of it that I think has been the full demise of why Luna is where it is right now, which is obviously the stablecoin. The stablecoin is, in my opinion, a problem, and I think this will always remain a problem in cryptocurrency for a long time. It's an algorithmic currency. What does that mean? You're probably wondering. Basically, it flows with the market. It floats on it. Imagine you have got a little paper boat on in your bath as a kid, right? Remember, you know, it's like that. So any volatility and any wave kind of movement will make it vulnerable. What the movements were with this situation and why we're going back in time to look at, like, you know, in terms of this sort of tweet here, the movement of money. We're going to come on to that in a second. The movement of money created a vulnerability element to it, which then allowed liquidity to be pushed in and out pretty quickly, creating instability in the peg. That instability in the peg would then lead to instability in, for obvious reasons, Luna and the rest of the market. Remember, Luna had been buying BTC as a reserve. What went first? You can imagine. So that's important. Now, what's happened now is there's a whole ripple effect now in the whole crypto. Now, yes, I did use Anchor Protocol, low risk management. It was high risk for obvious reasons. You didn't have to use much to get the desired gains, because the average of the market on Ethereum is about 6 to 8%, give or take, and in yield right now. That was double and more. So you got to think risk management here. The stable currency war, I think, has been ongoing for a while, and I think it's going to continue, especially when the government get involved. So where do I put my money? Well, I use BlockFi, and I have talked about this before. With this, there's a lot of security involved. There's a lot of custodian kind of elements to it with Gemini, and also it's backed by a lot of money. A lot of institutions use this and utilize this for borrowing and obviously lending. This, to me, is much safer than what you'd ever get on the likes of Anchor Protocol, for example, and this has been around for a long time now. This is one of the longest in cryptocurrency. Yes, there is risks. Yes, it is not backed by the SEC, so if you're in America, you cannot use it, but ultimately, safety is key. Remember, risk management is hugely important. You can only risk what you can afford to lose, even in platforms that are offering you yield. You've got to remember that. Cash is always going to be a big benchmark for people to have. You've got to have it, you've got to utilize it well. However, if you want to make it work for you, look at the safest possible options. And in my opinion, this is one of the safest out there. So link below if you're interested. Now, moving on to failures in companies and taking the piss, right? This was a interview literally 8 days ago, or actually it would have been more than that now, essentially. Obviously about 9-10 days ago now. 95% of coins will die, and I agree with that sentiment. I think that is hugely accurate. But the fact that he laughs and it's entertaining to watch companies fail, which has a rippling effect, let's be honest here, on people's mental health, which we will talk about in a second. If you are trying to make a company fail, and I myself have been literally attacked this week by a certain YouTuber from UK claiming that my company, which offers CPD accredited courses, is a scam. You don't attack someone randomly if you want to try and get gain out of it. And I believe this is what Duquan was doing. He was egging companies to die. He was saying that DAI would die, all the other stable currencies would die, and he would become the stablecoin king. Didn't quite work out like that. Moving on to the next bit, and the more obvious bit, is when everything was going crazy, he utilized the poor. Remember, the poor little insult. And also how the depegging would be, to him, essentially amusing. He found it amusing that people were moaning or just kind of warning and triggering a warning light to everyone on the social media networks that, hold on a minute, UST, there's a big outflow of money here. It's unpegging, that's a problem. Wow. So you got to think, that was on the 8th of May. Moving on to what is crazy as well, and I 100%, back this. If someone is going to create something that is responsible for other people's wealth, management of wealth, and creation of wealth, i.e. the whole network, essentially. You as a leader, a president, a founder, whatever you want to know yourself as, are accountable. Yes, it's a financial market. Yes, there's risks involved. But this was due, I think, poor management, a lack of kind of, I wouldn't say know-how. I would just say lack of self-awareness of what's around you in terms of what you say and what you speak. There's also other elements around this as well, stating that on CoinDesk, there's a little thing here stating that he was actually a part of a failed stable currency. So this is twice now. This is twice that he's been a part of something that has ultimately failed. That should be looked into. That is a problem. In my opinion, potential fraud charges could be here, literally, in terms of that. So we've got to be somewhat careful. But I mentioned before about the liquidity, the movement of money. Now, there's been a lot of rumours around, a lot of rumours regarding who is behind it. Now, there's been accusations about the Citadel Securities, BlackRock, and also Gemini being a part of it. Personally, yes, I have read this. I tweeted it and talked about it in terms of all this sort of stuff, right? I think what was said in the post, which was essentially explaining how the money was moved and what was moved in terms of creating that instability within the peg to allow a bit of a wash, basically. As I said before with the boat, a bit of waves, move a lot of money out, create a bit of a problem. Liquidity is then weak and then you can smash it, really. It's, it's simple. However, do I believe companies like this would get caught up into it? Publicly, no. But do I think that what was said in that post is probably pretty correct? I think in terms of how it was utilized, yes, but I would say leave the companies blank because I do think there is big money at play here. I think it has been a collective of a certain attack to enable things to happen. But for me, when you look at BlackRock, who are tied to USDC, you look at Gemini tied to USDC and also their own stable currency, there's a lot of things at stake there for their reputation. So I very much doubt they would want to be tied to it, hence why these have kind of came out. But it is an interesting post. Highly recommend you having a little look at it. Also, let's talk about why things have gone so wrong for Luna and why, yes, I was a red rag to a bull on Twitter the last few days because people have been advising people to buy Luna as an opportunity of a lifetime. Even as I speak, even as I talk now, there is probably an influencer telling you that you can stake your Luna, you can get a load of money and just sit on it, it'll be fine. Realistically though, it's dead. I mentioned this 3 days ago on my Patreon in the live on the Monday night. I said very, very clearly that if Luna is to survive, there's a high chance the contracts will be binned, it'll be a whole new tokenomics, and it'll be a whole new release, it'll be a whole new coin. If they get the backers to do that is another thing. I think personally, I think it's probably, that's it. No one's going to trust that person at all, especially if you're sitting in a cell. But when we look at this, it's hyperinflation. When the UST loses its peg, they have to create more. It's an unlimited supply. It is literally hyperinflation. So when I said at the start of the video, look at that, the 375 million coins. It is now sitting at a grand 6.5 billion. It's crazy. Even if I refresh this, there's a high chance it probably will start to keep going. This is dead. It will not survive. You are not going to release a coin with that many coins. You will have to redo the whole tokenomics. There's a high chance that it will totally change overall if it ever comes back. So we've got to be somewhat careful. But to all the people that have been recommending people to buy this during this event when it was sliding, and certainly when the DPEG happened, certainly over the weekend where it all went wrong throughout this week, and you were telling people at like $30, $20, $10 that it's an opportunity of a lifetime, you've probably just got a lot of people destroyed. And the one thing I want to finish on is obviously mental health. Suicides are a vastly big thing in today's society. Not so much with grief, not so much with, other conditions you may or may not have, but also in financial loss. I've talked about it quite a lot on my Twitter. You've probably seen the thread about it because it's impacted my life. And there's a lot of things on here, and there has been reports of confirmed suicides, which is really not good. Really, really not good. And the responsibility of people as influencers or as creators, developers, is you've got to think of the bigger picture. You've got to step out of that bubble and think, who am I affecting? And this is why I set up a training business, a company that is affordable for people to get the right guidance and the correct guidance, so they don't get caught up in the emotions and the crossfire of excitement and people basically telling you what to do when they're only thinking of themselves, essentially. You all know who I'm talking about. There's a lot of them. Now, with this, talk to someone. If you have lost a bag loads of money, don't just be alone and think, oh, it'll be all right, because the next time it happens, it's going to get worse. You need to tackle this and tackle it head on. And by talking to someone, it majorly helps. So, bit of a bleak end to the video. Hope you have a good weekend.